What's up, YouTube? So today I'm going to be installing a PerTronix ignition box on my 1966 C10. Box is sitting right here. I picked this up back a few months ago at the Summit Racing in Arlington, Texas. I recently opened up an outlet center, so one day I was walking through there to kind of see what they got. Lo and behold, sitting on the shelf was this right here. There's the part number for it. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description. That way, if you're interested, you can go ahead and check it out. And at the time, that was the retail price you would pay if this was new in box. However, that's the price I paid, so I couldn't beat just shy of $100 savings. Couldn't pass that up. Plus, it's the ignition box I wanted to go with. Main reason is my 66 C10 here has a small block Chevy, and it's got a PerTronix distributor, and it's got a flamethrower 2 coil. So I wanted to kind of stick with the PerTronix brand. One, they're a pretty good brand. This has got a lot of good reviews. 2, they're made in USA. And for me personally, I wanted to run an ignition box for the main purpose of having a rev limiter of some sort. I don't have anything, so if I had a breakage while really getting on it, I could damage the motor from over revving it. And another feature it has that I'm really interested in, it has a start retard. Should be really helpful in those really hot summer days trying to start it up. I'll have no issue starting it now, but having that start retard should help a lot as far as starting it. There's other features that are built into this unit as well, and I'll go over that stuff later. But for now, I think what I'm going to do is find a suitable location somewhere under the dash. You can do this under the engine bay. You can pretty much mount it wherever you want to. I'm just trying to keep my engine bay pretty original and clean, so I don't want a bunch of ignition boxes and other kind of stuff like that cluttering up my engine bay. So what I'm going to do is find a suitable location under the dash. It's a pretty small unit, so that shouldn't be too hard because there's not a whole lot going on under these mid 60 dashes. The wiring's minimal, not a whole lot going on under there. All right, I'm gonna find me a location to mount this box, and I will shoot a little video and show you where it's going. So we're on the passenger side of the truck, and this is the location I think I'm gonna go with. Now, as you can tell, in between that and the firewall is some Velcro. Got this at Home Depot. Says it holds up to 15 pounds, and the adhesive will mount on any rough surfaces like brick or concrete. Obviously, this is not being mounted to anything like that, but the texture of that metal on the firewall is kind of rough, and so far that looks like it's going to work. I have really easy access to the switches. Any wires that need to go outside, like to the coil, distributor, and obviously to the battery to power it, can go through that hole, and then the rest can be routed up and over through the dash, and however I need to do that goes to the key on and all that other stuff. Let me go ahead and test this. It is don't you just love the tearing of Velcro? That took quite a bit of effort to pull that off. Not a whole lot, but I do not want to mount this permanently in that location until I do air conditioning. So that's why we're doing it this way. As far as the wiring, I've been kind of looking at the instructions. I went ahead and printed them out last night. Looks like this multicolored wiring I will not need. Goes to a lot of options that I'm not going to be using. So it looks like this side is going to be all the wiring I need. So that's pretty much it on mounting. So what I'm going to do now, go ahead and get this back where it goes, connect it, and then start routing all the wiring where I need it to go. And I've already got the positive and negative power wires. Got it routed through that hole there. Got it loomed through those clamps I've already had for all my power cables for the compressors and the subwoofer, which is that blue wire there, and then the power battery cable and all that stuff. Already labeled at the ends, so you know which one, because there's 2 different red wire and black wire, so they labeled it to make it easier for you to know which one's which. So as far as mounting and securing it, I bought these cable tie clips. Looks like you just drill a 1/4-inch hole, snap these in place, and then you can zip tie the harness through that little loop right there to secure your wiring. that hole right there. I could use that or make another one somewhere in the location, somewhere in here to secure everything, or I may not need any of it at all. But as I start wiring it in, we'll figure it all out. So here we go, YouTube. Got most of the wiring done for the ignition box. I still got to do some final tidying up, but I'll go ahead and show you the progress I've made so far. So basically this one right here, I got 4 wires coming off the ignition box harness that I need to be outside near the engine bay. And so basically it's these 2 wires here. The white and black wire go to the positive side of the coil. The negative wire, or the black wire here, goes to the negative side of the coil. And then on the other 2 wires coming off the ignition box harness would be the white wire. It now connects to the black wire coming off the distributor. The red wire coming off the distributor connects to the red wire coming off the box harness. Both of those wires need a 12-volt ignition source. So I thought what I decided to do, since the engine harness, which is the yellow wire, it's basically coming out right there, going behind the distributor, since that's a key on 12-volt source that originally went to the positive side of the coil, I decided to go ahead and strip the red and the yellow wire, twist tie those together. That's why that terminal's end is blue, because it accepts the thicker gauge wiring. And then I put a female on both ends of the distributor wire, because one, if I ever wanted to pull this distributor off, I can just unplug those 2, distributor comes out. And 2, if I was to have an ignition box failure, with the tabs that come inside the PerTronix ignition box kit, I can just disconnect those 2 wiring, connect it to the coil. The only thing I'd have to do is come up with a terminal end for the key-on wire, the yellow wire, connect that to the positive side of the coil, and I'm back up and running with just distributor and coil alone. So that's why I did it that way. As far as the finishing product of the wiring, off camera, outside of this video, I'm going to be rewiring my fuel pump relay. I found a location under the dash I want to use. And so what that's going to do is bring all that wiring inside and get rid of that. And so once that's done, then I can kind of tidy up this mess a little bit better. I just kind of got it tidied up and out of the way. The reason I got that everything off and the one stud off is I had trying to try to drill a hole to mount that little tab there. I needed a lot of stuff to get out of my way. But I really do like those snaps. There's it zip tied, got a small little hole. Push those in there, they'll snap in place. They ain't going nowhere unless you pry them out. So, and I see it this way: once everything's back on the engine, you put the air cleaner on, a lot of that stuff's going to be hidden anyways. You're not going to see a lot of it. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to look really nice. And I think off camera, I'm going to tidy up some of this as well. It's starting to get a little bit cluttered up in here. But that's for me to deal with and not for you to watch. So I'm going to put all this back together and see if we can get this thing to start up and run. You know, guys, when I make these videos, it sometimes feels like I'm filming my own suffering. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So yes, after several hours of troubleshooting, found out that the one I bought from the outlet center was bad, so I ended up having to buy a new one. I did talk to Summit Racing, got in touch with the manager. Generally, in theory, when you buy something from the outlet center, you kind of own it. But he did work with me, and he said he gave me a discount on the $125 I paid for the other one, and I just paid the difference for this new one. There it is. I've already opened it, looked at it, but brand new box. I guess in one way I got an extra wiring harness, and finally, at least I got the mounting hardware if I wanted to use any of this, which I probably will. Destructions and everything that comes in the box. Now that I've painstakingly figured out that I need a new one, the new one came in, so let's install it to the truck. All right, real quick, I just wanted to show you how I did the wiring. Pretty much everything's wrapped up under here. All the wiring that's going outside the firewall here. And all the rainbow colored wiring that goes to the different options. I just cut all that down to about the length of the magnetic pickup harness, which is that one with the plastic connector right there. I basically cut it down the length and just taped it all together, zip tied it out of the way. There's the box. So basically, with the tachometer wire, I took the dark gray wire, which is right here. That goes to the tachometer harness. I basically just cut the terminal end off. I didn't want to shorten the wire in any way. Brought it all the way over here, gave me some slack just in case I need to move anything around here once we do the AC. And just basically cut down the actual gray wire that comes off the ignition box harness. I did think it was the red and black candy cane striped wire, but it ended up being the gray wire, which is originally intended for powering your tack. All right, now that you've seen that, let's move up under the hood and show you the finished product out there. Real quick, that's pretty much for now the final product on the wiring. And I went ahead and drilled a couple of small holes, used some of those snap clips, and zip tied the wiring harness out of the way. Went ahead and relocated the blue power wire that goes to my subwoofer. So now everything's nice and tidy and away from the exhaust. So that looks nice. You've pretty much already seen everything back here. I'll tell you what, guys, it's really hard to clean up and tidy up this wiring with everything in the way. Even though I had the coil off and the carburetor off, it was still kind of hard with the distributor. Could have pulled it off, but I just didn't want to mess with all that. So I did the best I could with everything there. The darker black wire right there is going to my fuel pump because I rewired my fuel pump relay. And so that's the new harness going to the pump. And speaking of fuel pump, going to that carburetor right there. If you have not seen the last video I uploaded, I went ahead, was having some fuel issues and it was a different scenario, but I ended up buying a new carburetor. That's the Edelbrock AVS2. It's the 650 CFM manual choke. And at the end of that video, I kind of gave my initial review on it. And I said on this video here, once we did the PerTronix box install, I was going to give you my final review on the carburetor itself. And there's one feature I forgot to mention that the AVS2 offers that the Performer Series carburetors does not. And that's a dual fuel line setup. AVS2 carburetors from Edelbrock are the only ones that offer a dual fuel line setup if you want to do it that way, or you can keep it single. They do make a line that connects both bowls, but generally it runs to the front of the engine because most people run a manual fuel pump. I, however, am running an electric. So that's why I did it this way. Plus, my fuel hose is coming from the back of the engine. Could kind of keep it clean, and I didn't want to redo all that for a fuel line. So this is what I came up with. Had to get this fitting, the T fitting, and the actual carburetor inlet fitting right there. But the rest of the fittings and the fuel hose I already had. So it was pretty cheap and easy for me to do this. And now, coupled with that, I went ahead and put the 43 squirter back in the accelerator pump. Because on my initial review of the carburetor, I was having an issue with the lean bog when you got on it, wide open throttle hits. So we're going to see if the dual fuel line setup plus the going back to the bigger squirter is going to alleviate that issue. Hopefully it does, but if it doesn't, at the end of the day, maybe it is what it is, may have to live with it. But for now, let me go ahead and put the air cleaner on it. And let's jump in this truck and take it for a little test drive. All right, real quick. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on this, but I did want to go over the features. This is all the wiring. There's your power, heavy black, coil wires, all that stuff. Small red wire, ignition, white wire, all that stuff. The violet green wire would be used for that kind of setup, HEI or whatever. Magnetic trigger distributors like an HEI. Gray wire, we already know that goes to the tachometer. Looks like it also can be used to trigger RPM register devices and batch fuel injection systems, so whatever that means. We don't have fuel injection on this truck. The dark blue wire is your launch rev limiter. So this is more, these are going to be features if you got like a street strip or a race car. Ground that wire to activate launch limiter. The light blue wire would be a burnout rev limiter, apply 12 volts to this wire to activate burnout rev limiter. Yellow wire would be for a shift light. And what I originally thought I needed for the tack wires, the red and black candy cane stripe wire, that wire is for internal tack adapter. See notes on use. Here's the instructions on that. If you want to, I'll leave that up for a second if you want to pause real quick and read all that. But that's the different wiring for the different types of tacks that you may have. Now, as far as programming the old box here, believe it or not, you can actually bench top program this with a 9-volt battery. I think that's pretty neat. You just need to use the small black and the small red wire. You leave the small black wire connected to the negative side of the battery while you're doing the options. And once you got all your options set, you connect that wire to the positive of the battery. The two lights right there, the power and run, those two little LEDs will flash, I think 3 times. And that means you know your settings are saved. Once that's done, then you return your mode switch back to 0. Or you can do this while it's in the truck or while it's in the vehicle. Key on, you key it off, leave the key off while you're doing your mode settings. You key it on to save it. Once it's saved and the lights flash, then you key it back off and then return your switch to 0. All the cylinders, the different cylinders it'll run. Pretty interesting. You don't have to save this setting. You just change the switch to whatever engine you already have. Here's how you do there's the different modes. So let's go over, the most common mode that will probably be adjusted. Let's just say the rev limiter. So that would be mode 1. If you're doing the key on version, you would go to mode 1 with the key off, change your settings to whatever. So default is 5500. Let's say you got a high revving engine, you want to do 7,000. Oh, got to move it to mode 1 first. Mode 1, change it to whatever setting. You got to have high revving 383. Move it to 7,000. That's the 1,000 RPM, and then the 100 RPM. Let's just say we're going to leave that at 0. Once you do that, you key it on. These two lights will flash together simultaneously. And then once that's done flashing, then you key it off and you return your switch, mode switch, back to 0. If they flash alternating each other, that means that setting has already been saved and you don't have to do anything after that. There's start, retard, all the functions there. Not going to go over that. There's all the functions for this item right here. Alright guys, let's go for a little cruise. So it's a beautiful Sunday morning here. Nice and cool. Probably around 55, 60 degrees. Really, really nice weather. To give you my final overall opinion, not only the PerTronix ignition box we just installed, but if you remember on the last video I said I was going to give a part 2 review on the Edelbrock ABS2 650 CFM carburetor that is currently on top of the engine as we speak. I'm going to start with the carburetor first. Just the drivability is so much smoother than it was with the Performer Series carburetor. And I think I had that pretty dialed in. My opinion is this one's a little bit better. Just a lot smoother. Just everything that transitions from just off idle, sitting at a light, just normal driving that you would do on a daily basis is a lot better with this carburetor than it was with the other. And I think I had the other one pretty dialed in, but to me this one's a little better. So essentially the accelerator pump circuit in this carburetor is the only thing that isn't original. It's got a stiffer accelerator pump and it's got a bigger squirter. It's got the 43 squirter, which I believe is the biggest one Edelbrock makes. Let's go back to that road and do a few wide open throttle hits just to see if it's been resolved. It may have been, it may have not. I think as far as tuning this carburetor, I have not messed with any of redo the exhaust. Stay up to date. I'm telling you guys, like, subscribe, stay up to date. I got videos coming. I already got the exhaust manifold I'm gonna be putting on this truck. I already purchased, ready to go. I have to get a few odds and ends, but we're gonna redo the exhaust system. Enough of that. But when I do that, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get one of those weld-in O2 bungs, and I'm gonna do an AFR gauge, and then I can really dial in this carburetor and get the AFRs where they need to be on idle, cruising circuits, which is the two main ones I'm really worried about, and then wide open throttle. I'd like to get this carburetor run as efficient as possible. Alright, here we are. Let's go ahead and hit this thing real quick, see what happens. Nobody behind me. Breaking up. I have not adjusted the settings. PerTronix ignition box comes factory preset at 5,500 RPM, so I think I hit 5,500 RPM. Not too bad of a little hit right there. Let's see how the wide open throttle just kind of cruising like we are now. Just stab it in first gear. Let's see what that does. That wasn't too bad there, but let's try it the other way. Man, it's a beautiful day. Alright, nobody behind me and nobody in front of me. Wish I could get rid of that fog. I think I need to do some more adjustments on those ABS flap. But honestly, I may just have to live with it. It may be just the thumbs down portion, or the biggest setback with this carburetor is that it may not be anything I can do about it. I mean, we got a dual fuel line set up now. Got the biggest squirter Edelbrock makes. Got the stiffest accelerator pump that's in it. We're still having that issue. I can mess with the valve flap adjustment, but I think overall, I think it is what it is, and I'm just going to have to live with it. And I don't, to be honest with you guys, I don't do that really anyways. If I'm going to get on it, I generally do it more like this. PerTronix ignition box. I'm going to give you my pros and cons. We'll start with the pros. It's relatively affordable at $218, not too bad. It's very, very compact, which is a plus as far as wanting to hide it or finding a suitable location to mount it. It's not going to take up a whole lot of real estate, whether it be under the firewall or like I did under the dash. As far as me going with the Velcro mount, so far so good. Honestly, it was intended to be a temporary solution, but when I do air conditioning, if it does not interfere with the AC unit that goes under the dash, and it does not have any issues falling down, then the Velcro stays. I'm not going to change anything. Derek from Vice Grip says, if it works, is it really a dumb idea? See what I'm saying? So on that logic, if it works out and it doesn't interfere with my AC unit, it's probably going to stay like that because I kind of like it. I don't have to drill any holes. And if I ever wanted to change it or remove it and clean that area up, I can. No big deal. Now, as far as the cons or the setbacks, I would say on this ignition box is I really don't see any. The only one I can't say one way or the other is the longevity. I don't know how long this thing's going to last. It may last, into this video, it may last 5 to 10 years. I don't know. Hopefully it lasts a really long time. But that pretty much wraps this video up. I hope y'all enjoy my channel. For all the new subscribers out there, videos will get a little bit better. These carburetor and ignition box videos probably not very exciting, but that put me right where I needed to be. But I got some good videos coming over the next few months, so stay up to date. Hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss a thing. All right, guys, it's getting close to Christmas time. Got to do a little Christmas shopping, so I'm gonna enjoy the rest of the day. Like, subscribe, and until then, thanks for watching.